Call the meeting to order.
Sean Lucas,
Here.
Justin Orff,
Here.
Jared Giddens,
Here.
Aaron Peterson,
Here.
Darlene Graham. Here. And Amy Hookstrat.
Here.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did you get to eat?
I'm good.
You're good? Okay.
I am.
I will pass it off to you.
Okay. If you don't mind, Mayor and Council, I will present from down here, just in case you have any questions. If we want to run some scenarios, I'll be able to do that from my computer. So
Very good.
with that, we will get started with the PowerPoint.
If we cannot have the live feed completely on us eating all the time, that'd probably be beneficial as well, Drew. Thank you.
Okay. What we're going to present to you tonight is the operating and capital budget for next year. These are very kind of a high-level view of what we've sort of put together. And the purpose is to sort of let you know where things are at this point for you to have all the information that you need to make decisions and come back to us with direction on how you would like us to go with the budget. So this is in no way, you know, the final product or anything. Is very preliminarily in a draft form, but just to let you know sort of what we've put together at this point. And when I say we, I mean Jimmy and I and directors and staff. So with that, I would like to start out with just a high-level view of how the budget is structured. We have a few newer council members, and so I just wanted to make sure everyone understands the structure of the budget and how everything is situated and how it all works together. And we have made some significant changes in the way we're accounting for things, and so even if you have been through this process before, there's some new things to highlight. First of all, just to kind of give an overview of how the money is structured, we have three fund types within the city of Nixa. The general fund is the fund where all of the tax revenue comes into. Most of the tax revenue, not all of it. Most of the tax revenue sits in the general fund, and the general fund funds all those departments that don't have a revenue stream to support themselves. So most all of the functions of the city come out of the general fund. Then we have special revenue funds, and these are funds that are just what they say. They have a special revenue stream that can only be spent for those things, such as streets. We have a transportation sales tax, so that sales tax can only be sent in the streets department, and it has statutory limitations to it, so it is called a special revenue fund. And then we have enterprise funds. Those are the business type funds that we have charges for services that fund those activities, and the user rates are supposed to cover operational, personnel, capital, and debt expense. So those would be the utilities, electric, water, and wastewater. Those are called enterprise funds. So knowing that, that is how our budget is structured. We've made some significant changes in 2022 that I'd like to make you aware of. Number one, we're getting rid of some unnecessary funds and moving those to departments within the general fund, eliminating the need for large transfers for operating money. In the past, police, parks, building inspection, and stormwater have been their own funds, but they have no revenue source. Their source is the general fund, so we were having to make large transfers from the general fund to these other funds, when really it's much simpler to put them as departments within the general fund and account for the money in that way. So that's what we're doing. We're also adding some departments within the general fund so that directors can manage their budgets more efficiently and for better expense and revenue tracking. Up until this point, every department within this building, finance, legal, HR, was all lumped in together in the admin budget. So if our city attorney needed to know how much he'd spent on training for the year, it's a lengthy process to try to parse that information out. So we're separating all of that out so that we can track those expenses a little bit more efficiently. We also have added departments of central garage and utility billing. We've added those two departments with a transfer in and out between funds for more accurate budget forecasting. Central garage is where all of the fleet vehicle maintenance is done, and so, and a lot of that work and that labor and those supplies are split 7 or 8 different ways between departments, and so having that done that way, the different departments don't know what's being spent. So having it done this way, we'll be able to track those expenses a little bit more easily. Okay, so here are the new departments within the general fund. The fund is Fund 11, General Fund. We have administration, communications, finance, legal, economic development, human resources, police, parks, planning and development, and stormwater. So all of those departments are funded by general fund money, plus the money that they each individually can bring in as a department, such as parks. So if you look at the long sheet that you have, the budget dashboard, I just wanted to kind of highlight how that is all set up and what that looks like. Having gone over what the different funds are, you can see at the top in the gold, that's all the general fund. So all of those are each individual department within the general fund. And we'll be able to track those by department. They'll have their own revenue and expense lines, but the bottom line is what you will look at, when you're talking about where we stand financially with that. So you'll see the different categories of revenue, grant, tax, sales, fees and fines, other sources, and transfers in, and that totals into that second column of revenue. And then you've got your expense, personnel, operating, capital outlay, debt, and transfers out, and that totals into that expense column. Then you have your revenue over expense line, restricted reserves, and then your final cash balance. So that is how you read that budget dashboard. And so that top section is the general fund. The second section is the special revenue funds, and the last section is the enterprise funds. Okay, in the special revenue funds, we have streets, and within streets, we have the street department, and we have the central garage department. And then we have ARPA. That is a special revenue fund, because as you know, those funds are very restricted in how we can spend them. So it's its own fund, and we will account for it separately. And then the enterprise funds, we have the electric department. The water fund has the water department and utility billing. That's a new one. And then in wastewater, we have wastewater and recycle. So I know that's a lot of information, but I just wanted you to have it so that you'll understand where we're going with some of these things.
So
all right. Any questions on how it's structured? Sorry.
On the ARPA funds, are you doing a transfer out to the department that's actually spending the funds?
Okay. I think that will be the easiest way to do it. We have it actually set in a separate bank account even right now, and so I think for tracking purposes, it'll be easiest to show how it's being transferred. Any other questions on the structure? Okay. Well, we're going to talk about revenues first. In the general fund in the administration department, this is where most of the sales tax or tax money sits. So here's what we're doing in taxes. We are increasing the budgeted revenue by 15.73% over the 2021 budget. And so this represents a 2% increase in sales tax over 2021 projected totals. So what I did was, we've got November and December yet to go to see what that revenue is looking like. It's been coming in the last 3 months at 17, 18, 19% over the month of last year. So what I did was I projected 10% for November and December, took that total and added 2%. So that's where the sales tax increase is coming from, where that revenue is going to come from. And so we did that for use tax and sales tax. And then we did a 2.7% increase in other taxes just based on what we've gotten so far. Other taxes is real estate, cable and gas franchise tax, surcharge tax, financial institution tax, little ones like that. So, so that's the tax revenue increase. In sales fees and fines, we are increasing the revenue by 5.95% over the 2021 budget. This is mostly in sanitation fees and is based on actual year-to-date revenues and a projection for how we'll end the year. Every other line is remaining flat in that category. In the other category, we are increasing revenue by 6.82%. This is in interest. We sort of projected kind of low for the 2021 budget in interest, so we just didn't know where things were going to go. And so this is projected on what we will actually be getting in our rate, which is 6.82% over what we budgeted for this year. I will point out, though, that because interest rates have dropped so tremendously, where we were bringing in close to $500,000 in interest in the year, we're going to be less than $100,000. So major decrease in interest revenue, because we were earning 1.87% and now it's 0.2. So the transfers in line is decreasing by 18.05%. This is because of a 25.3% decrease in admin fees and a 5.59% decrease in fee in lieu of taxes. Admin fees are fees that we charge the enterprise funds for services that we provide them, such as finance, admin. And so how we figure that is we make our employees do a time study, and we tell them to record for a full month how much time they spend doing activities in electric, water, wastewater, street. And so the admin fees, they fluctuate. We do a time study every 2 or 3 years, so they fluctuate. It just depends on, how staff spend their time on any given time that we do the time study. So in this case, we're decreasing admin fees, and then we have a fee in lieu of taxes decrease. That's based on sales in the electric and water department. So overall, in the administration department, we're increasing revenues by 3.9%, or $353,787 over the 2021 budgeted revenues. Okay, in the police department, we're decreasing revenues in grants. This amount varies year to year, so that's not really something that we sort of track or keep, we track it, but it's not something we count on for revenues. But in sales fees and fines, we're decreasing that revenue line by 28.8%, or $38,000, namely in fines and forfeitures. We had budgeted $125,000 in this line, but year-to-date actuals reflect a forecast of $64,000. So we just want to be conservative. That number may go up when we move cases to county, but there's no way to tell. I don't know. We're increasing budgeted revenue by 3.84% over the 2021 budget. This is in interest. Every other line's remaining flat. So overall in the police department, we're actually decreasing revenues by 23.49%, or $44,050. Police is not a revenue-generating department. It's not meant to be, but it does affect the overall budget. Okay, in park, we're increasing budgeted revenues by 1.79%, or $18,200. This includes a proposed aquatic submission increase, which Matt is going to speak to in just a minute, and additional revenue created from the dog park. And then we're increasing budgeted revenue by 27.74%. In other revenue, this is impact fees, and based on 2020, that should be, 2020 actuals and 2021 forecasted revenues. So overall in the Parks Department, we're increasing revenues by 2.02%, or $40,200. And with that, I'll hand it over to Matt.
All right, so there are a few fee changes that we are proposing to make. Most of those are to fees that are significantly older in time, most of them 2008 or older. And so one of those is the season pass pool rate. As we continue to see rise in minimum wage, that has driven up the fees for the pool. We raised last year, if you recall, raised gate admission rates, and we left the season pass pool rate the same. I think it is time that we make that increase. And so basically, we're just jumping it $10 for the first person, another $10 for each additional person in the household. And so the items that you're seeing on the left is the current 2021. The 2022 is on the right.
What's a single day pass?
$5 for residents, $6 for non-residents. Kids 2 and under are free.
Okay, thanks.
The next one would be private pool parties. The private pool parties, we've always based on a bit of a scale. The 50-person, 100-person, or I guess that should actually read 100-plus people, so instead of the 100 people twice. I guess that plus sign didn't come through, I apologize. And so what that is a reflection of the number of staff members that we would have to have present for the party. And so the smaller the party, we don't have to have as many guards for. The larger the party, we need more guards for. And so the increase here would cover those staffing wages to ensure that the pool remains profitable. In that one, it's also following that cost recovery pyramid that the private pool parties are very instrumental to a single person's gain instead of a community gain. And so a little bit more money is made according to our business plan with that cost recovery pyramid. And then the next one would be the private pool parties. So these are parties that we offer during open hours. Currently, we are at $90 for up to 20 people. That includes paper products. They can add pizza to that party. Really, we are profiting little to nothing at that rate. And so the increase would go up by $20 all the way across the board for those. These are 90-minute parties that happen under a specific umbrella for the party. It gets admission for free or for that rate, for the party rate for the entire day, but they have the umbrella there just for that 90-minute period in time. And so in 2020, that says 2022, that would come across, we would stop doing the paper products. They could supply their own and just have the umbrella for that 90 minutes for the same 20 people. And then the dog park rates. We are proposing a $20 per family up to 2 dogs rate that would cover the annual membership, include the access tags. We would gain the proof of vaccination as a required field for them to gain access to the dog park. That way we can ensure that all the dogs are vaccinated that are within the dog park. We've also discussed bringing over the Nixa dog license to the Parks Department. That way, at the same time that they're registering their dog with the city dog license, if they want to go ahead and do the dog park, they certainly can. And so those rates did not change. That's just on there just for note.
Matt, are we going to have somebody there to verify those licenses and stuff at the dog park?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
They will have a specific tag for the dog that they are required to have on the dog, much like you do your vaccination tags and things like that. So it'd be easily recognized.
Okay.
We're kind of modeling off of Springfield in the sense that people police the park on their own and will tend to call and let us know if someone is there that they believe should not be.
Okay.
And then we can verify that way.
So will a dog have to have the Nixa license in order to be
If they
registered
are-
with the dog park?
Yeah, if they are a city dog.
Okay.
So if they do live within city limits, yes, ma'am.
And-
If not, then no.
And what happens to the rate if a family has more than 2 dogs?
They would end up having to buy 2.
Okay.
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, so his revenue budget did reflect the increase in rates. So if you were not in favor of that, then we would need to fix those numbers. Moving on to planning and development, we're decreasing the revenue budget here by 7.52%, mostly in building permits. So, that's that one. Okay, in the special revenue funds, we're going to talk about streets. We're increasing this grant line by 75%. This just varies, like I said before, with grants. It has to do with STP funding and different projects that are budgeted. So these are matching grants, and so this year's budget, we're increasing it by 75.5%. Again, with the sales tax, it's the same model that we used for the general fund. We're putting a 2% increase over projected 2021 totals, and a 9.5% increase in the CART funds. That's County Aid Road Trust. Those are the state funds that come to us for three different categories, and it's based on year-to-date actuals. So, sales fees and fines. The street department has some surplus items that they intend to sell next year, so that's going to generate about $99,000 more revenue in that line. And then we have the transfer in from other departments to allocate the expenses that are incurred from the central garage. So that's a new item there. So overall in the street department, we're increasing revenues by 49.86%, or $2.2 million over 2021's budget. Okay. In the electric department, we are decreasing budgeted revenues by 6.68%, or $1.2 million, and this accounts for the overall reduction in revenues budgeted for that department. In water, we're increasing budgeted revenues by 3.59% due to the incremental increase in rates, and all other lines are remaining flat. And then we've added the transfer in from the other two departments to allocate expenses incurred from utility billing. In wastewater, we're increasing budgeted revenues by 2.73% due to the incremental increase in rates. Penalties and permits are reduced and surplus sales is increased. And we're decreasing budgeted revenues by 10% for impact fees, and that's the year-to-date actual forecast. I think we budgeted a little bit too high for that particular line for 2021 for some reason. So overall, in the electric department, we are decreasing revenues by 6.6%. In the water department, we're increasing revenues by 25.5%. And in the wastewater department, we're increasing revenues by 1.46%, or $53,250 over 2021 budgeted revenues. Okay, in the Arpa Fund, in 2021, we received $2.271 million, and in 2022, we'll receive the same amount, and then we'll get nominal interest. But that's what is forecasted in the budget for ARPA on the revenue side. Oop, you gotta see my money tree. Oh, I want to stay. Okay, that's my money tree. It grows outside my office, so it's an actual picture of it. So any questions or thoughts about revenues before we move on to expense?
I have some mainly directed towards Matt first off, but so I know we had a decent amount of people drop off with their memberships at the center during COVID. What has there been? Has there been any sort of uptick? I mean, and can you track who canceled theirs whenever COVID hit, and if they have renewed? Like, does that get too granular, or do you have the ability to do that?
That would be a one-by-one case and check.
Well, you got plenty of time.
Which
so.
we can do. We could do. So
Yeah.
no, we have not done that direct correlation, no. Yes, we are starting to see that uptick. That started kind of back in April, May. Things started to kind of uptick again, and we're seeing that it's slow. I will say it's very slow in comparison to where we had been in years past. It is definitely slower. The biggest one and the spot that we're really, really slow or still in that negative is in that older population. So those 55, 60 plus. We are just not seeing those visits come in quite yet. Where insurances and things like that through United Healthcare and the Silver Sneaker program, we are still running maybe half or just under a half of what we usually saw in 2019 prior to pandemic. And so those numbers just have not come back yet. Those are still active memberships that were paid on the visit. And so when we're not getting those visits, it does equate to quite the sum by the time you get through an entire year. But yeah, I think we are slowly in that gain category. It is a slow gain at this point, though.
Now, go ahead.
I can tell you, in 2020, for daily admissions, we brought in 18,629. So far, year-to-date, and if you project it out through the end of the year, we're on course for 28,000. So it has increased some.
That's good.
Not back to the level of 2019, but it's much better. And then center memberships, in 2020, we brought in 314,000, and this year we're on track for 370. So it is increasing, but like Matt said, slowly.
So at what point do you, and I, to be honest, I haven't followed the social media stuff when it involves working out, because I don't like working out. But what point do you guys start doing some sort of a marketing campaign? And maybe this is more towards Drew, but as far as New Year's and stuff, because, you know, everyone joins in January and cancels in March.
We do that annually, and you'll see that November, December, as we start trying to collect those New Year's resolution people and those people really thinking about the 22. So we've always started that marketing campaign in November and December, and kind of ramped up into the new year.
And my other question, this may be towards Jimmy, but can we do, like, Arpa Funds? Could we do some special on memberships just to get people to join and maybe do, I don't know how, I know it's different because at a business you can kind of do whatever you want, but do a first 2 months are free, but that's actually paid by ARPA funds, so we're not losing money just to get people back in there?
I'm going to say no, only because
Why?
you can't use ARPA funds for any kind of lost revenue per department. And I think we'd be trying to make up for some lost revenue potentially. But I can look into that a little deeper. I don't know that anybody's asked that question yet, in all the reading I've done, but I can look into it. But my first response is probably going to be not.
Okay.
But we'll look into it some more.
And do you think, as far as like the whole Silver Sneakers program, do you think,
No. Oh, sorry. Sorry to interrupt you, Mr.
Go
Gibbons.
ahead.
Just to add to that, though, what we could do when we get to, and we'll get to that ARPA section here in a little bit, you could do, we could capture lost revenues, and then we could use those lost revenues for other governmental operations. So in that aspect, we could potentially do lost revenues and then supplement that to do some type of something with the Parks Department. So I would say, as I sit here and think about it, there probably is a way to do that.
gotcha. And do you think a lot of people fell off on that deal because of not wanting to be around other people, small spaces?
The insurance with United Healthcare through Renew Active and the Silver Sneaker program is a part of the insurance program. And so we get paid by the visit. And so each time they come in, they scan their card, that's tracked. We turn that in for a monthly payment. So it's really not costing the person that has the insurance account anything. It just costs us when they don't visit. And so, yeah, I think a lot of that is very much attributed to COVID and people holding their distance from big public interaction that way.
Have you talked to any other municipalities as far as if they're noticing the same thing, specifically maybe some that might have bigger areas for them?
I know Springfield is experiencing the same thing. I have not heard from Ozark.
Okay.
It's just a trend that we're in right now. You know, I think it's very much that older population. Of course, they're pretty vocal, the ones that are coming in, or we see a new one, and wow, we haven't seen you in a while. And yeah, I've just been holding my distance. Some of them are coming, but it's very sparingly, and not as often as what they used to come.
I had a question for Doug. On the electric, I believe you stated that we're due for a rate study, is that correct?
That is correct.
Is it going to take place next year then?
Yes, actually, I'm going to bring that to you for the rate study and all the preliminary information next Monday night. And this has been ongoing for too many months, but yeah, we'll be bringing it to you, and the plan is to have that ready to go January 1st.
Okay.
So we did the rate study this year. We just haven't quite got it done yet.
Right.
We haven't implemented. So the change in rates would occur January 1st, right? Yeah.
That's correct, January 1st. We haven't had a change in rates since October of 17, so we've been flat ever since then.
Thank you. Sure. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Okay. Moving on to expense. So we'll break this down into personnel, operations, debt, and capital. First of all, talk about personnel. And this is what we are proposing. We'd like to add 1 full-time parks, building, and grounds maintenance position, 1 full-time wastewater utility worker position, 1 full-time public works inspector. This budget reflects eliminating 2 full-time positions in municipal court and eliminating 1 full-time position in IT. Proposed changes in wages, we are proposing a cost of living adjustment of 4.67%. Currently, inflation rate year-to-date is 4.67%. That's based on the CPI in the Midwest, not the national number. We are proposing, since this is such a large increase in COLA, that we forego a merit increase. But we would like to suggest an adjustment to the logger's contribution, reducing the employee's contribution from 4% to 2%. So the employees would see a 2%, they would be able to keep 2% more of their wages as opposed to the 4% contribution. The goal is to ultimately be a non-contributory employer.
Have a date on that goal? Like you want to do it by 2024?
Would be great if we could do it next year, but it's not like it's in the strategic plan, to become a non-contributory employer. It's just another way that we can attract and retain employees.
Feel fancy.
So.
And, yeah, it's, just to follow up on that, Mr. Giddens, yeah, it really just depends on where we're at in budget, but that would be ideal, is to try to take that other 2% on maybe in next year's budget, if that's possible. Recent legislature changes allowed us to do this stair step. Used to, it was either 4% or none. So this makes it a little more affordable for us. And then I'll also point out that instead of the merit, by doing the 2% increase, that reduction of 2%, but on the employee, but 2% increase on the city, that will go in effect January 1st. So the employees will see that immediately, whereas a merit would ultimately wait until their evaluation date. So it will be it's an offset a little bit, but it's a benefit to the employee because they're seeing that immediate increase as well. And then I just want to touch on the proposed changes in staffing levels as well, because every year, I'll wait till that goes by. Every year, I want to make sure that council understands that there's a lot of other staff requests that were made that leadership staff believes are needed. I just can't afford them all. So I just want to make sure that I cover those as well, just to make sure council's aware there is a greater need than just what you're seeing on the proposed staff changes. For example, finance did ask for an additional purchasing clerk. We do have 1 purchasing clerk now. To give you an example, in all of 2020, the purchasing clerk did about 36 RFPs and RFQs. This year, she did over 42 in the first 6 months. So we're definitely much, much busier than we ever have been before. But again, that position just wasn't affordable under our current budget. So we're just trying to find ways to, again, as we've done, is ask employees to wear multiple hats. We're just running out of heads to put them on. But we are asking for some additional assistance from some of the other employees to help out in that area. Parks Department, I'll just be, upfront, council. The Parks is struggling with the personnel they have. They need more people to do all of the things that we're asking them to do. We're continually asking them to add programs, but they just don't have the staff to do that. You do see that we did ask one parks grounds, building and grounds maintenance. Woo. But Matt did request also an administrative assistant and a custodial position to help out within his department. We just couldn't afford all three. So whatever I asked Matt, which he needed the most, this was his answer, is parks, building and grounds maintenance. There is a, because you got to just, and if Matt wants to expand on this, he can, but whenever a person sees building grounds and maintenance, there's a lot to that position. You know, they're the ones that are setting up the ball fields, striping the ball fields, taking care of the grass, you name it. There's just a multitude of responsibilities that they have. The hope is that adding this position will alleviate some of the things that Matt is currently doing, and Katie, that is, you know, that he assures me that may be able to open up some additional time, maybe for Katie to concentrate a little more on some of the sponsorship programs and things of that nature that I think that is just something we're missing out on there. But again, he's asked for 3 positions. It's just not affordable to do all 3 at this moment. Public Works also asked for a utility locator, an additional locator this year. That is something that we're still exploring. Doug has been looking at possibly contracting that out, but we spoke about that today, and we're just not finding anybody that's willing to do that right now. I think that's, and Doug, you can expand on that as well as you want, but I think that's mainly because, okay, we're still trying, so it's just like everything. I think they can't find the people to do it for us. So that's something we may have to revisit, and if so, we'll bring that back to council. But that's why it's not up there currently, is we're exploring all the options that we can. Police, their recent staff study suggested we needed 8 additional officers. Again, you'll notice there's none up there, because it's just not affordable. But there is the need that the chief has presented in that staffing study, and I think that for 8 officers as well. And then legal asked for a paralegal position because of some staff changes coming up. It's going to be there's going to be some additional duties that Mr. Woodman's going to have to work with, and he could use that paralegal help. But again, that's something that we just couldn't afford at this time. But we have elected to put that position on contingent, so we're going to revisit that mid-year and see where sales tax revenues are and see if we can come back and maybe help out in that area. And then communications also asked for an assistant as well. Again, it's one of those positions that, you know, would help with marketing and that kind of thing. Again, it's just not affordable. So those were the requests, and please, leadership staff, if I've missed any, please tell me. I think I got them all, but if I've missed something, let me know. Did I miss one, Doug?
Only the ones we didn't submit.
Okay, there you go. I missed all the ones they didn't submit, but there is.
There were 2 or 3 others we
Yes.
talked about, and they never made it to your desks.
Yep.
But it goes in line with what you're saying. It's affordability and that type of thing.
Yep. So I just want to make sure council's aware of the overall need within the city, so as we're making decisions moving forward.
Along with that, as you know, the police department is constantly trying to be competitive with our neighboring jurisdictions. And so they had asked for an adjustment to commissioned officers' wages. We were not able to afford it in this budget, but I did put in, before we get there, there's no changes in employee benefits, so that's really, really, really great. Our insurance, everything, all of that remained 0 change. So it's all the same with no increase. So that's great. Oh, that went crazy. This is a chart of, and I'll let Chief Campbell speak to this, but this is information that he has provided. And what you have here is neighboring jurisdictions and the current rate and the proposed, because he asked for $1 more per hour, and then with the COLA and the total, and then I'll just let you talk about what that means.
Yeah, sure. So I felt like it was important to look at the comparisons, and you know, a lot of times we rely on staffing studies to do that, but I can tell you, for us, it's really easy. We can look at local jurisdictions and see where we fall on in comparison to our neighbors. I will tell you that my original proposal was $2 an hour, and through the course of negotiating with the city administrator, we felt like that was not going to be attainable, and so we talked about $1 per hour. And then I was told that that might not be attainable as well. And so right now we're at where we're at, which is nothing other than the COLA. and the adjustment for retirement. But you can see what that would do for us as far as our comparisons to the other agencies that I have listed up here. Most of those are working agencies that are within our county. Highway Patrol, Nixa Schools, Christian, and Republic are all working agencies within this jurisdiction of Christian. What you'll also notice is I started thinking about the number of people that we've lost to these different agencies, and I've noted that as far as I can remember. I went back by memory, and you can see we've lost several people to the Nixa School District, several people to Springfield, and then when you start counting job offers that were declined to recruits, we lost several to Christian County as well. And so some of that is directly related to this pay scale up here. We certainly have struggled with retention and recruitment. The environment that we're working under right now is not conducive for people to come into the profession, and so we are working diligently to try to turn that around. At the same time, you will also note that we are going to have an issue as we move forward retaining people as well, not just recruiting, but retaining. When they look around and they can make more money and work in a neighboring jurisdiction, and frankly, probably do a little less work than they do here, because we do have high standards at this police department, we might see some more attrition. So I thought it would be appropriate just to show this to you and let you guys see where we stand as we're moving forward. Do you have any questions specific to this?
And sorry to interrupt, Chief, but just real quick, the current budget that's presented to you here, you'll notice that on the dashboard in front of you, the operations as percentage of revenue, we're at 96.14% currently. That does not include any additional raises for the police officers. So if we were to add, if council were to elect to add $1 or whatever council feels comfortable with, that will change that percentage. But Jennifer's prepared as well to do that and see what that increase might be if we need to. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, Matt provided this information because this affects him greatly. So Matt, if you wanted to speak to the minimum wage increase and how that's affecting your personnel budget.
Yeah, I mean, you know, with the minimum wage increase from 1030 to 1125 for 2022, I think our total part-time increase is almost $90,000 in that part-time wages that we will see. I just wanted to note there that not all of our part-timers make minimum wage. Some of them are definitely above that. We increased all of our wages across the board the same amount. And so we kept the same spread between positions that they've currently had and have had for several years. So it adjusted all of our part-time wages to make that adjustment. And so I just wanted to remind you of that. We will see one more adjustment in 2023 up to $12 an hour, which is where it will stay, kind of. In 2024, it starts following the consumer price index. And so we'll kind of get along the same lines of where the city is as far as that CPI increase that we would see each year. So it won't be taking nearly as big of jumps as what it currently has for the last several years, but I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that increase as well.
Why does it keep skipping? All right, just overall changes in the personnel budget. I just wanted to note that personnel expense includes more than just wages. It's recruitment, training, mileage, wages, taxes, benefits, uniforms, and the work comp premiums. So that's all encompassing. So as it stands right now, the personnel budget is increasing 4.93% or $584,000 citywide over 2021's budget, with 43% of this increase coming from the police department. As they changed over to 12-hour shifts, the officers are budgeted at 2184 hours instead of 2080 hours. So that increased the budget. And then 25% coming from the Parks Department, mostly due to that rise in minimum wage. Okay, moving on to operations. I didn't want to get in the weeds with like too much detail, so I just sort of pulled out some of the major things that we've budgeted for in operations. We've beefed up the promotional item budget. We're going to be rolling out some new branding, and so it's a good opportunity to come up with some new promotional items, and so that's included in this budget. We have budgeted for a salary survey. We have budgeted for referendum consultation services from Baker Tilly, where they will do a lot of research and do some surveys and come back to us and say, this is the best chance that you have for passing, you know, this sales tax or that sales tax, or this is our recommendation, or maybe don't go at all. You know, they will figure that out for you. We've got quite a few computers that we're going to be purchasing, rotating out some old ones in police and parks. We are contracting out our IT services instead of having an in-house person. And so that budget has increased. We will be using PIT technology. They do our IT services now, but they will be doing much more and being on site a couple times a week or once a week, and be more available for that. We've got a whole slew of new street lights that are going in, and we have budgeted for a hydraulic study and water master plan. Anything else that any department directors want to add, to highlight?
I would. I think we've got a number of the things that you typically see, some of the road projects, major master plan projects like a new circuit line to complete, you know, a loop of 2 substations in a certain area. Jason's got some extension of water line to increase. So there are a number of items like that. One of the street lights that she mentioned, the strategic plan, you know, one of the goals there is to change all of our street lighting over to LED in 5 years. That's a pretty steep number. If we were to do that at today's prices, it's about $230,000 a year for the next 5 years to convert what we have. So we've got some money in the budget, and we'll go as far as we can with that. I don't know that we'll get them all done in 5 years. We'll just have to wait to see how that goes, but we've at least got that in there. Of course, the hydraulic study and the water master plan, it's more of an update on the master plan, but the hydraulic study will also help us be able to determine where future needs are going to be, similar to what we did with the south and west sewer master plan to determine what's out there for the future. Also in with that, the fire department is interested in cost sharing a little bit with us on the hydraulic study, because it provides them additional information and helps them check another box on their ISO rating. So they've come to us and asked for that, and it just so happens we happen to be, you know, asking for that this year. So that came in really well.
Yep, and then I'll just clarify one thing. Jennifer mentioned IT services are going up. They are over our current agreement with PIT Technologies, but just the offset of that is we did reduce personnel expenses a little bit. So there was an offset there. So there still is a little bit of a savings for the city in contracting out the IT service.
Now, is Mr. Morgan our dedicated account representative from PIT?
He has been so far.
Okay.
I asked, they're going to offer to provide somebody on site either 1 day a week, or we can do like 2 half-days a week. I asked if we could have a dedicated person, but they want to rotate those and train them all so that anybody can come down at a minute and take care of us. But we did think that with increasing the services through PIT, that we could still maintain what we need now and save quite a bit of money, $30,000 to $40,000 a year.
Now, are they looking at, on the computer side of thing, are they looking at a lease program like what we're doing on vehicles, or are we just buying them
They are
outright?
still researching that. The lease program was looked into and then dropped when we eliminated that position. And so I do have Jason right now looking through those. He has contacted the individual vendors, the reps for the vendors, and he's supposed to report back to us. So that's still a possibility as well.
Cool. Do you guys do much leasing?
So overall changes in the operations budget,
Worked more on the computer in a decade.
oh, I'm sorry, did I interrupt somebody? Oh, okay. We're increasing the operations budget by 8.34%, or $1.5 million citywide. I didn't break it down because we've added these new departments that have not had have not had a history, we have no data points to compare. So we've kind of had to look at this from a high-level view. Next year, when we have more data, we'll be able to compare. So, okay, moving on to debt.
Before we go into that, one of the things you mentioned was a salary survey. And I think that, Jimmy and I are talking, you guys have done one in the past. Where did we come out on that salary survey in the past?
Sure. We used PayPoint in the past. PayPoint recommended that we look at doing at least what they consider the 50th percentile, which was what they would consider average to their other comparable cities, that organizations that they utilized for the survey. We started out at what was affordable, and we started out at 40, and then council ultimately ended up going to 45%. So, that was 3 years ago, I believe now. So about 3 years ago, we're at 45%, so we were below average 3 years ago. So, and that's where we've been.
So if we're not doing any merit increases this year, we're only doing the cost of living increase, and then we're also reducing the retirement to where the employees will have to put in 2%.
Correct.
They will see an increase into their take-home pay from that. But if we were behind 3 years ago, what's the point of doing another salary survey if we already know where we're behind?
Because
if we're not going to take any increases?
Sure. A new salary survey will just tell us how far, if we are still behind, where we're at, and what it takes to, because without that, we would honestly just be guessing at this point on where we need to set with all the different salaries, because there's been a lot of changes over the last 3 years. So doing a new salary survey will allow us to re-examine every position across the city and get a new baseline, and find out where we stand, so we know how to adjust after that. Yep.
Okay. So then that would give us a better idea of where we need to adjust, like you said.
Yep.
So you was talking about a $1 increase for the, it's not included in this 96.14%. What does that look like with that $1 increase? What
Sure.
does that number come out to be?
We can get that number for you really quick.
I think you said you could do that, so.
One of the things on the salary survey too is we somewhat questioned the validity of the last one that we got. We weren't overly satisfied with the results of it. And so.
So my biggest concern is that with the fact that the cost of living is continuing to increase, the number of jobs out there is tremendous, but there's a lot of people that are hiring. And people are leaving current positions to go to a higher paying job. And I know right now we have positions that open that are not filled, and we have people still leaving. So what are we doing to prevent that? I mean, a cost of living increase, is that going to prevent someone from leaving if they get a job offer higher somewhere else? So how are we competitive? I mean,
Well, I could say that the cost of living increase will also increase the starting salaries for each position by that percentage, so that will help. You're correct, when it comes to like the retirement, the 2%, although we can make sure people know that, it really doesn't do much for the starting salary, which a lot of people look at.
right.
You're correct. We do have a lot of openings, and several openings tend to last for a while, and our turnover rates have not been good. And the feedback that we continually hear is, really pointing towards salaries and the fact that some employees feel that they're underpaid. And so that's why I would like to do a salary survey effective. I'd like to do it right at the first of the year, as soon as we get this budget approved, get that started. Now, granted, how do you address that? Honestly, it probably wouldn't be addressed till the following year. So we are going to be, even if we address it, we're still already a year and a half behind that. But I think the COLA is one way to address that, at least a small percentage, because that does increase that.
And will the
pay.
COLA go into effect immediate January 1 as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
COLA will go
I knew
effect
you said the
January 1.
ledger, I didn't catch the
Yep.
part about that.
And then, just so you know, if you did a $1 an hour raise for all the commissioned officers, it'd be 97.16%.
97.16%?
About 1% increase.
So, I think if I understand correctly, that the difference between 100 and there, we use those funds for is that other general fund projects or CIP
Yeah,
projects?
Usually we put that, yes, we put that money back into the our general fund, and then that's how we afford future CIP projects and such as that. As you'll see today, we're getting ready to cover the CIP projects. We got some pretty big ones, and the reason we're able to afford those is because we've made some savings over the years by doing that.
So, and on Matt's purpose, if I understood correctly, you said that with your situation, anybody that's making minimum wage and then with minimum wage going up, you've also increased your other salary people as well? Is that how I understood that?
Not full-time salary, just part-time salary.
Just your part-timers?
Correct, to keep that even spread between them so that there is some.
So if I'm a part-time employee and I'm already making $11.25 and the new person gets hired in $11.25, I'm making more than that person?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Are we doing that with any other areas of,
Yep, only the part-time.
only part-time? Okay,
Yep. It really comes down to affordability issue.
okay.
Yeah, that percentage metrics doesn't include any CIPs. That's no CIPs, no debt reduction, no anything else. So that, we used to have a much larger gap than we do now. And so increases in wages over the years have cut into it.
That's something to think about, and Amanda is constantly trying to be creative with the ways that we can compensate employees without it costing an actual dollar, like increasing time off or giving, incentives like longevity pay. That does increase by $1, but sometimes giving extra time off, employees appreciate that, and that doesn't necessarily cost the money. It costs spreading your workforce a little bit thinner and things like that, but there are ways, and Amanda's constantly trying to think of ways to be creative in that area to try to compensate our employees. Okay, debt. We paid off the Mcauley Park this year, so we don't have that anymore. We have added the vehicle lease payments, and you can see those totals there that will be included in this 2022 budget. Our total outstanding debt, not including the vehicle lease as a whole, as of 12/31/21, because we won't be incurring that till next year, is $2,867,000, with payments due in 2022 totaling $1.365 million, and that does include the vehicle lease payment. And then 3 of our bond issues will mature in 2023, but be 2 in wastewater and 1 in water. So by 2026, we won't have any current debt. Okay, on to capital. I'll let Jimmy speak to the ARPA funds.
I've just got 2 slides here for you, and the first one is, if you recall, we spoke about ARPA funds quite a bit at the council workshop earlier this year, and we broke down how council had directed us to look at potentially spending those ARPA funds. That's what you see in this first slide. Originally, we were looking at doing $2.5 million toward the Oakmont Regional Lift Station that would further development in that area of town. Cherry Stormwater Project, which is $600,000 to finish out that project. A new ERP system, we set aside $800,000 for that, which we have already started that process. The website, we set aside $100,000 for a new website design. And then we had $40,000 set aside for nonprofits, $350,000 for building improvements. And again, that's all the buildings, not just city halls, police, water, wastewater, all those buildings. And then lost revenue at $150,000. Now that's what we originally had when we came out of the workshop. The next slide, if you don't mind, Jennifer, shows a little closer to where I feel we are today and recommendations of staff at this point. And that is that we're still at $2.5 million for the Oakmont Regional Lift Station. The Cherry Street Stormwater Project is $600,000. And then the ERP system is coming in a little higher than $800,000, so we got that up about $900,000 now. But you can see the website came in a little lower than what we anticipated. We're going to be closer to $70,000 to $80,000 for that new website, and to integrate that website with the new ERP software, which was an additional expense that I feel that we need to do to make everything work the way it should. And then still $40,000 for nonprofits. Now you can see the biggest difference there is the lost revenue. And before we broke that out in building improvements, and then we had lost revenue. if you want to just lump that into lost revenue, we actually, Jennifer ran the formula again with some additional information that we received from the U.S. Treasury Department, and we can actually claim up to $580,435 in lost revenue instead of the $150,000. So again, when we first gave this to council, everything was still pretty new. We were still learning our way, but we've got additional information now that we can do that as lost revenue, and we can still take as much as those funds as council would like for us to do some of the building improvements that we need, but we would just do that under the caveat of as lost revenue, because once you do lost revenue, you can use that money for governmental operations, which, Mr. Giddens, I'm going to back up on what I said earlier as I sat here and thought about it, and I talked with Jennifer about it. I don't believe we're going to be able to do the parks program you were talking about with ARPA funds, because that's not technically a governmental operation. It would be assisting with those payments. So
We could
probably
budget,
not.
we could budget marketing
Yes.
funds for a program like that.
You could do something like that. Yep, you could do something like that. So, but this is kind of a conversation generator, I guess, for council. We're just needing some direction. I would like to try to move forward with expending some of those funds fairly quickly, specifically the nonprofits. We are getting requests from some of the nonprofits on requesting some of those funds. And as I think I mentioned during the workshop, the Nixa Community Foundation has agreed to administer those funds for us through a grant program once they complete their current grant round, which will finish up this month. And if we could get those funds freed up for them, we'll get them started on that next grant round. And again, they'll do the grant process and take care of all the administrative functions for us to handle that. So that way, that money is getting out there quickly to our community to be able to help to fit that need within our community. But
So the 580 number is the maximum
yes,
cap
that's the
for that?
maximum. Yes,
Okay.
correct.
So I think we should maximize that,
Mm-hmm.
and then we could reduce the money from this for the lift station and just budget wastewater money to fund the additional portion of it. Is that a reasonable thing to do?
So you want to do 580,000 lost revenue and take that, what is it, that's
Take the
$67,000 off the lift station?
160,000 out of and do 90% of the lift station with ARPA money and the
Sure.
other 10% with
Absolutely. Yep.
sewer funds.
We could definitely do that.
Seems like a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything that we need to watch out for when it comes to, we donate $40,000 to the community foundation, and then they turn around and write a grant for the Nixa PD to buy
Sure.
body cameras or whatever?
Yeah, great point. We can specify, we'll dictate how we want those funds to be expended. It's done quite often through the Nixa Community Foundation.
Okay.
And as we would be giving them the money, we can actually dictate that. And quite honestly, we would probably make the city of Nixa ineligible for those, because we have our lost revenues that we can use for other things for our organization. So this would be more directed toward those nonprofits that are across our community outside of the city of Nixa.
I just want to make sure there
You
wasn't.
probably want to exclude all taxing districts, because
Yeah.
everybody got ARPA,
Yes.
the school district also got ARPA money, and
Yes.
I think the fire district,
Absolutely.
everybody got.
Yeah,
money, so.
and just as a reminder, just a refresher, that there is a lot of other programs out there available with ARPA funds, rental assistance, small business assistance, economic development assistance. So just because you don't see those up there, there are avenues for those businesses and other organizations across our community to seek additional funds outside of these ARPA funds. Yep.
Didn't you say too, when it was mean that this money had to be, unless it's certain projects that we have listed there, but it had to be something to eradicate COVID?
No, it has to be they were specific that we could utilize the money for water, wastewater, and stormwater.
Right.
Period. So you can use it for any of those things regardless. Now, some of the others, like the nonprofits, they have to be able to show, and it'll be part of our stipulations, that they have to show there was an effect from COVID, or what they're doing is to mitigate the effects of COVID. So again, like our ERP and website, again, is going to help the spread of COVID, because more things are going to be online, so it reduces the amount of time we have to have hand-to-hand contact to turn in business plans and come in and make payments and those kind of things. People can do all that online. And we can also make that information available through our websites and things like that to help mitigate COVID.
This is completely off topic, but not really. Did you give it much more thought as far as having an area, either somewhere in City Hall or somewhere around here where there's just a computer set up for employees to be able to sit down and teleconnect with a doctor?
So I had that, I planned on doing that in this year's budget, but unfortunately, we had some issues come up, and we just can't afford that now. We had specifically, we had the generator go out here at City Hall that was 13,000 something that we just had to find out that we had to fix that, and I had some money set aside to add a little office area to do that. So that is something that with the, if we use that lost revenue for some of the building improvements, that is one of the improvements that I would like to make.
Okay, now we're gonna look at each department's capital project plan that is included in this budget.
We'll take
And
a 5-minute recess.
Oh,
We'll come back to
5-minute
that.
recess, yes, okay.
Thank you.
All right, we will call the meeting back to order. Go ahead, sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no. What?
There was cake that needed to be eaten, so, and move on.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we're going to go through each department's capital requests, and these are broken into the different capital categories. And the blue indicates a project that is being carried over from previous years, and then the red indicates those projects that are split between multiple departments. So in the admin department, you want to?
You'll see in the admin department, we carried over the downtown design. I just want to clarify, that's more than just design. We also left the money in there last year from the parking lot in case we get the downtown design done. I want to go ahead and move forward with that parking lot that we had talked about for this year. Garrett and his staff is working on that downtown master plan now. So when that's done, depending on that time frame, we may still do that parking lot. So that's why that number is still where it's at. Or we could elect to go a different direction with that money on a project downtown too, if council would like to do that. The wayfinding signs is rolled over, although I think I did add $5,000. There was some discussion about potentially adding some new signage as you come into the city on maybe 160 or 14, welcoming people to the city and rolling that into our wayfinding signs. So we did increase that to 30, but that 25 of that was rolled over from last year. The website, again, an app was rolled over. The server is an additional server that we need to do, and speaking with Pitt, it's going to allow us to shut our other servers down and do some real needed maintenance. I can't talk tonight, but we need some maintenance done on our current servers, so we need to add another server to be able to get that accomplished. So you'll probably see that number change as we'll probably split that out from some departments, but it's about $10,000. The outdoor lighting would be here at City Hall. If you ever notice, if you go outside right now, our lighting is pretty poor on City Hall, and it becomes a security issue with the old lighting that we have. And to be able to do that, outdoor lighting would change everything to LED. We would actually be able to back up the lights a little bit here where it says Nixa City Hall, and brighten that up a little more as well. And those would also be programmable lights. So for instance, Christmas time, if you want to make them red and green, we can do that. Law Enforcement Week, if we want to make them all blue or all red for a football game, whatever the case may be, we'll have the ability to do that and light up City Hall. So it's a pretty cool project. That's $20,000 for that. And then the ERP system is the $900,000. Again, that would be offset with the Arpa funds. So.
Are they looking at leasing on that server as well?
We have not. We have not looked at leasing the server, but we can definitely ask them. Yeah. That's something we haven't looked at. But we'll ask Jason about that.
He'll know I'm involved.
Oh, yeah.
I used to work with him, so he knows I'm a pain in the rear.
Any other questions on the admin CIPs? Okay.
The wayfinding, that's like citywide wayfinding signs, right, for like lots of places?
Yes, so it'll be across the city, not only just the entrances, but it'll be across the city, pointing people to areas like maybe downtown or the community center, things like that. So, and they'll all have the same design. The reason we didn't get them done this year is we're waiting for that rebranding. We didn't want to spend a lot of money on wayfinding signs, then have to turn around and redo them. So when we get through that branding process, then we'll be able to get on that wayfinding signs for next year. I know that there was a mention, and I did want to mention it because someone, can't remember who, when I mentioned it, about the current sign we have coming into the town on 160. That is not included in this, and I know somebody asked about that, but that currently isn't in the CIP projects. But definitely something we could consider if council wanted to.
Chief? Wake up.
Well, you've probably seen this before. Obviously, the main priority for us for capital improvements is going to be our range and training building. I gave a bit of a presentation at a council workshop and detailed that. You can see that we are budgeting or requesting to budget $680,000, and we believe that will get the range built and the training building as well, so that we have an additional place to train. It's going to alleviate some of the pressure that we have on our one room that we have at the police department. With that, building costs are up, but we had if you remember, the estimations that were given by Schaefer and Hines were rather wide. I kind of went middle of the road on my estimates on that, and at this point, this is the only one we're going to present for this year. Do you have any questions?
Sorry, Chief.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, and you'll notice there's a Water Street building remodel. I did push that to next year. That was $120,000, but that is a need that we're going to have to take care of relatively soon. But, sorry, if you had any questions for Chief.
So let's say that this project's being carried over from the previous year, so we already had the $680,000 in the budget this year for that shooting
No,
range?
if you recall, the original CIP was for $150,000, and that was to do the work in our existing footprint. And through the course of the progression of the project and by recommendation from Schaefer and Hines, they said that it wouldn't work at that location, and that's when we looked at the alternate site, which was up the hill. So that's some of the costs are directly related to moving the dirt up there, bringing the amount of dirt in needed to make sure that we're building it to a 1-to-4 slope, so it's properly designed.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Park.
We have a lot. You're welcome. No, I'm just kidding. We'll just start at the top of the list and kind of work our way down. The Oaf development on the north parcel.
Can you go back to the one before? The Water Street? So you're saying you're pushing that to 2023?
Yes.
Okay, that's what, okay.
I didn't take it out.
All right, sorry. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
I'm glad you said something about that one too, because how close is that to being kind of in a spot of having to just completely tear it down? And, I mean, is it even safe to keep most things in there? Luckily, the thing that's in there you can't pick up and just move, because, I mean, you can see outside from inside there.
So if you, just for a little backfill or backstory on that, if you recall, we were given that by the Public Works. We were able to take possession of that after they vacated, and so we were very grateful to have that space, and we've used it for storage for a lot of our police department assets, and it's also a place to put secure things if we need to secure something such as evidence, like a vehicle or something of that nature. Unfortunately, we haven't done anything to that building, and it was in a bit of disrepair when we received it. And so over the years, we've made some patchwork modifications to the roof and things of that nature, but it's getting to the point where it needs some major renovation to really keep it up to what I would consider a proper standard. And we started looking at that, and that number got really big really quickly when we had it bid out. And so as far as building one from scratch versus repairing this one, I would tell you that I think when we looked at that and talked to the builder who was doing the original estimate, he still thought it would be cheaper in the long run to fix the existing building than to start over from scratch. So we're making a recommendation that we do rehab the building, do put the money into it. It is centrally located, which is good for us in the city. And I don't think there's any plan for it to go anywhere. Originally, many years ago, they were considering removing that building, and so we were told it was going to be a temporary space for us. But now they're looking at it not needing to be removed, and so we'd like to retain it if we can.
Do you think it's gonna make it another year or two, or enough Flex Seal and spray foam will be good for 2 years?
Yeah, we did talk about maybe some winter projects, we do have the opportunity to do that. So if I can look at my building maintenance budget, that's in my line budget, and if I can see some money there, that I might be able to do some of the small things, upgrades that we need to do, some, leaky roof type things, replace the door, that kind of thing. But it certainly wouldn't get us where we really need to be, which is some major renovation.
Give it back to Doug, make him repair it, and then give it back
And
to
you
you.
can take it right back. Yeah, that was kind of my concern, is that putting it off, are we gonna end up damaging something that we're supposed to be keeping? Or is it gonna get to a point where we would have no other choice but to just tear it down and build something from scratch?
And those are great questions, and Chief addressed that very well.
Yeah.
I'll just mention that as we get through these CIPs, we can go back and visit any of those that council would like. It's just how comfortable are you with the ending cash balance for a general fund?
yeah.
That's going to be the bottom line.
Yeah.
So please, just because we push it, absolutely, council can revisit that tonight. So.
Does anybody know what that line item was originally? Since it's not.
What that? 120,000.
120,000, okay.
Yep.
Back to parks. So the first one on the list is the OVE development of the north parcel. That'll be a design. You'll see a $70,000 line item there for the design work to line out and look at what we want the OVE property on the north parcel to look like, so that we can get around for that building and construction of that end of the park. The second one is the dog park restroom is a carryover. Obviously, things have gone way up this year, and getting around and bidding that or working towards that, we're finding, and what we're wanting to build is much like what you would see at any of our area lake campgrounds, is more of a prefabbed bathroom. It's complete concrete. They bring it in on a trailer in 1 to 2 pieces and form it up, put it there, and it's already ready to be connected to the water, electric, and it's off and running, usually in as little as a day. The pad and things are done prior to that coming into town, but we're looking at a $46,500 cost for that. The slide repairs for the Aquatic Center would just to update, refinish a few of the slides or a couple of the slides, work on the tower just to make sure that it remains in operable shape. This is one that we've done before. It's been around 12 years ago, and so it's just another one of those updates that we need to continue to do to ensure that the slides are operable and in good health. That would come out of the CIPs and the Aquatics Reserve in that account. The trail extension for Mcauley Park, we've removed, and I think we pushed to 23. The Christmas lights, we've discussed making that a walking path type Christmas light display. If we do that, it will have a significant cost. Using the east portion of the trail there at Mcauley Park, we would need around $100,000 in electrical work to make that extension, to extend the electric in to what we would need that infrastructure to look like for those additional light features. The remaining $25,000 would be the start of new lighting features. We are starting this year with a brand new Christmas tree, and so looking forward to getting that up and displaying that for the community. That $25,000 would allow us to start the purchasing and hopefully sponsorship of some new lighting figurines and things like that to make a Christmas light display here in Nixa.
Matt, does that include anything for additional snowflakes or anything out there? Or are those just totally gone now because of the new light poles?
Are those gone?
They're not, we've still got them, but there are a couple of things. One, on these new steel poles, we don't have any way to hang on those.
Yeah.
Another thing that will affect us this year that didn't affect us last year, our banners may come into play on a couple of spots, but we do still have the snowflakes, and we'll put them up where we can, which would be up Main Street some. With the pole transitions going on for the East 14 project, I don't know that we'll be able to put them there this year.
That's
Because
fine.
that's going to be in flux and being moved over, so.
I just asked because a lot of people asked about them last year, and I was
Yeah.
told it was because of the poles and stuff, so.
Yeah,
just wanted to
and
make
you're
sure.
correct.
Okay.
The next one would be the Rotary Park Pavilion update. That pavilion is a 1960s model, so it's done a great job. We've done a lot of improvements as far as painting, roof, and that type of thing over the years. It's just time for that one to be updated. It sees a lot of use through the summertime, and so this would bring it up to speed, make it a little bit bigger, and make it look something more similar to what you would see at Mcauley Park, and so a much needed update for that pavilion. The Stingray replacement for the Aquatic Center is a floatable for the pool. There's 4 of those. We replace them every 2 to 3, 4 years per, and so they are not cheap, but certainly something that is a very cool element of our pool, and it is a $6,000 expenditure for that. The salt dome and gate system for the dog park will replace Jeff's salt dome that we are converting to a pavilion and give that back to Jeff for use somewhere. and then allow us to use that at the dog park as a pavilion space for the dog park. And then the gate system will be more of a key fob gate system that you would see at a lot of our area dog parks. A dumping trailer would allow us to have a trailer that had a dump bed on it. Right now, we borrow a lot from Jeff, and so Jeff's always grateful. Thanks, Jeff. But trying to get something that our guys would be able to grab a trailer, move some mulch, some dirt, and that type of thing within the parks. Something that we do quite often to try to keep up with flower beds and that type of thing, and give us a space to work with. That dumping bed would be an incredibly useful tool for us to be able to dump that in the spots that we need that. And then the biggest one here is the Mcauley Park Playground upgrade. That is $1 million price tag. We are getting ready to go out for bid this week on some of the water repair that we've talked about a lot. Schaefer and Heinz finally got that around for us so that we're able to get that out, make these improvements prior to the new playground, or hopefully a new playground. And then this would allow us to design and put in a new playground that is all-inclusive, have a rubberized surface, great new playground equipment, and just make that playground a very cool spot for the city.
I know on that
Questions?
playground it tends to hold a lot of water,
It does.
so how are we gonna eradicate that?
Hold on, what does?
The playground.
Oh, okay.
Currently, that playground is, 21, going on 21 years old, and so, going on 20 years old. And so, we've had so many wood chips and things over the years. It is cut into the ground, and so it's basically silted itself in, so it's a pond. And so that's what we see when it's holding water. It is literally holding the water now. It doesn't drain off like it used to. We've tried a lot of different things. We pulled out all the wood chips, or as many as we could get to in 2019, and completely replaced with all new. That lasted, a year, maybe a little bit more, and we're back to that spot. The new, or as we improve this playground and go into that rubberized surface, they will remove all the wood chips. It will have a lateral field of pipe and gravel with the rubberized surface on top of that. And so, believe it or not, that rubberized surface is porous, so the water that does hit it goes right on through, hits a lateral field, and takes that away. And so that will not be an issue moving forward there. Then with the work that we'll begin doing soon with the water coming from the soccer fields and things, we are going to remove it in more than one way. And so should eradicate all of those water issues that we're seeing through there, make that a very cool space. I'm really excited about what Schaefer and Heinz has put together for us to make the space not only aesthetically pleasing and useful that way, but also help us eliminate water, which is super cool.
And then I'll add just a couple of things. One, on the Mcauley Park Playground, we're planning on, if council wants to move forward with that, we're going to utilize the earmarked money that council's been earmarking for parks over the last several years from unexpended funds from each year's budget. So we're going to allocate that and utilize that money for this project. So we've been setting that money back for a large project, and this is what we're putting before council. And then I'll also mention, as I did with the PD, you'll notice the trail extension on Mcauley Park was pushed until the following year. That was about $60,000 to do that. And then also the OAF development pushed about $430,000 of that to the following year, and that's just to start those improvements so that we can get, next year, I dropped that down to 70 to at least get the master plan done so that we know how to move forward in the following year. So I just wanted to mention those.
Wasn't sure which way we were going. In stormwater, we have two items. One, of course, is the Cherry Street. We put that in for the next few phases, or as far as we can go. And we're at the time, we're attempting to line that up with those ARP funds. So was that the same number in the ARP? Okay. Okay. Well, then we'll need to make a slight adjustment on this one then. The Morning Glory, that's a section of existing stormwater that the pipe has collapsed, and we have to go in and completely replace it. 200 feet, 100 feet, something like that. So we'll have to completely replace the whole thing. It collapsed. The guys have gone in and been able to put a small patch in there to keep it going for now. But once we determined what it was going to cost, after we ran the camera through it and saw the whole thing is egg-shaped all the way down, we're going to have to just completely take it out and put new in. Man, I'm having a hard time seeing that. I'm not turning away from you. I'm going to read over here. Obviously, we've got, this is a very large CIP for street, and most of that has to do with several carryover items, including the design of North Street, which you can see is $5.5 million. When you get the Truman Boulevard in there, which.
500,000, okay.
I'm sorry. The Truman Boulevard at 1.7, that's the carryover from what we had from last year. We're down to another easement or two, and then we'll be getting ready to go bid that project out. So hopefully it should be done maybe by summer, late summer of next year, we could have that project possibly done. The Northview expansion, well, I skipped the boom mower, I'm sorry. The boom mower was actually on there last year. We completely missed the dollar amount for the value of that, so we just scratched it from this year. We've added a little to it and carried it over for this year. We've been able to keep that boom mower going, luckily, but it does need to be replaced. The Northview expansion it's an extension of the 3-lane widening like we did in front of Tractor Supply, and it will carry it on past Old Wilderness, in other words, where the entrance is for that Wasson commercial development. It would bring that 3-lane down to there and then taper on the west side of that. Some of these are just equipment replacements that we typically do. Not all of these are done on a schedule. They're just going to the point where we're starting to see some real maintenance and repair cost issues, such as the backhoe. The dump truck is actually one that we try to keep on a rotation if we can. Another big item that's in here is the Main Street tractor to CC. I will say that we've budgeted the entire amount that's allocated for that project, which includes 80% of that is returnable through STP funds. However, honestly, we probably won't spend all of that in 2022 because the project will, by the time we get through the environmental, get through the easement acquisition and right-of-way acquisition process, moving utilities, it's very possible that we wouldn't see construction in 2022. Maybe by late 2022, that construction would get started. The school zone beacons, that's the last in the series. We've been upgrading those to meet all of the new 5G technology. The software that's there is not supported anymore, and so we're doing upgrades on those. Jeff's done those in 3 phases, or he's done 2 phases already, and this will finish up the last of those in next year's budget. Salters are replacements that go with replacement vehicles. The signal replacement at $45,000, that's the controller replacements and some other items at Aldersgate and Maine. There again, it's the equipment's out of date. You can't upgrade it anymore as far as putting the new software, controller software and that type of thing in it. So we need to upgrade that. Roundabout expansion, that's the expansion for the one at Northview and Gregg, which is, right now it's small. What we would do there is we'll extend that center circle out some and make some enhancements to that roundabout. Of course, the utility replacement and the UTV, utility trailer and the UTV are both replacement items. I don't know how old either one of those are. They were here before I got here, so they've been around for a long time. The building addition, that we have a three-sided building. In other words, the front of it's open out on the north end of 1111 that the electric department built several years ago to house wire and extra materials. What this would be to add 2 stalls onto that, to the east side of that for some street equipment. Of course, the IT switch replacement is the streets portion of, we're doing switch replacements all over, replacing all those in all of our facilities. And so this would be the streets portion of the one at 1111. And then the building repairs is the streets portion. You'll see that show up again in electric. In redoing some of the new office space upstairs, we found that in the existing office space way at the back, when they did that, obviously they did all that work without permits and kind of after they were already in there, and we've discovered what they did. And basically they've gone in there and they've used the hanger wire for the T-post and the T-rails, and basically they tied that off to wood and sheetrocked it. So it's not strong enough, and that ceiling is actually bowed in there. So we've got to rip all that ceiling out, and we'll go back with a removable or replacement ceiling in there. Of course, a website and app. Okay, yeah, that's a portion for streets, and then office furniture. That's some furniture to go into a couple of the new office spaces that are upstairs. Did I miss anything? Did you want to say anything?
I might mention that the 4 larger projects for street CIPs are 8% reimbursable through STIP funds. So ultimately, this will be the cost for the city to start off with, but we would get some of those monies back.
Is Northview's SDP?
Pardon me?
Is the Northview one SDP funded too?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm
okay.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's-
That one's
it's
that one's not.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's what I thought.
When you said north, I was thinking North Street, not Northview.
no.
Sorry.
That's what I thought. Any other questions?
So again, this is a new thing. We're gonna, we've put the CIP requests in the central garage, and then its expense will be shared amongst departments. So anybody want to speak to these?
I can real quick. The bridge crane and trolley, that's one of those, another one of those that is, was shared across departments. It's actually in this year's budget. There again, it was one of those items that we guessed wrong. We were way under budget. So we brought it back for this year at the amount we think we can actually purchase that for. Jennifer, I'll get with you later. This Main Sys Elite update, that's actually a software item that we would move over. And I didn't realize it when, like you, I didn't realize it when he sent the CIP in, and so it kind of went through the system, and I've come to realize that that's basically a software update for the software they use to track all the vehicles, all the service, and all the repair work they do on the vehicles. A filter crusher is a recycler, which basically we are able to squeeze out and obtain all the excess old oil from those. It's more of an environmentally friendly item than it is anything else. The trench drain at 1010, because of cost, we pushed that off to 2023 at least, and we'll reevaluate it next year, but that one was in the $90,000 range. We've got a situation where on the west side of that building, there's a trench drain in there that was, when it was constructed, it was way too small, and it doesn't handle any water the guys do their best job to stay over on the east side when they've got water in there washing down equipment and things like that, because that end of it works a lot better. But there again, it came down to dollars, and we've just pushed that. That's been pushed a number of times. Okay, another long one. This one's actually longer than streets, but it's about the same amount of money. As you can see, there are a lot of projects carrying over on this one as well. The Highway 14 East, most of that stuff's been carrying over because, waiting on MoDOT. But we're finally getting that underway. It won't be finished by the end of the year, but it should be close. Of course, the SCADA, we're about to finish that. Some of this will be some upgrades for next year. We're currently in a complete upgrade where we're putting in completely new software, and we're waiting on the server to come in before we can finish that. West Highway 14 lighting, again, that's to light this portion of the 5-lane that was constructed, and there again, we're hung up with MoDOT on approval on how to go about lighting that. And I hope we don't run into the same issue when we go to the east side, because we do want to light those. Leanne and Nicholas tie it's a circuit tie to be able to continue doing different circuit ties to where we can switch between substations and offer greater redundancy across different parts of the community. That's one of those that's identified in the 5-year master plan, and you'll see a couple of those on here. The AMI, we've rebudgeted that. We're just really getting started, getting ready to get started looking at AMI. We've been so busy this year, we haven't even started tackling it yet, so we're showing that amount to carry forward that was already approved in this year's budget. The tracker to Cheyenne, of course, that's another one of those tie lines. Like I mentioned before on the Leanne and Nicholas, where we would tie across 2 circuits. Raintree overhead to underground, that's the first, this is a first attempt for one of the strategic plan items to start burying existing lines. Over in the Raintree area is one of our worst areas for trees. One, it's almost impossible to get back in there and trim them because all of the fences and everything else out back there. So you can imagine and of course, with the large trees that are over there, it's squirrel haven. We have a lot of squirrels in that area. So getting all that underground, and this will just be a portion of Raintree, of course. But that's a good start to moving towards getting some of these distribution lines in the residential areas buried to try to help with outages. Small bucket truck is a replacement. It's a rotation replacement. Those we used to buy those for $130,000, I think, when I came here, and we're up to $215,000 now. So, and hoping we can get it for that. Yeah, because it's probably 2-year delivery on it if we get it ordered. So, of course, the electric master plan, that's an extension of the 5-year master plan, similar to what we talked about a little while ago in water. This would be to look at outlying areas so we can start determining as the community grows, we're set up moving in that direction to have all these ties. So we're not going back and doing the tie lines and some of those things like we've been doing for a number of years. Granted, they've been good projects and they've really added a lot to the reliability of our system. But this is moving us more from a reactionary to a preventative type plan to keep that level of service up for the future and all those future additions. The wire puller, let's see, am I getting the right thing? Yeah. The wire puller is a replacement. That machine was purchased in 2005, I believe. So it's been around for quite a while. That is actually used when we pull all this big underground cable. It used to be when you'd pull up on a job site, you could see 5 guys trying to push wire down in a pipe and somebody at the other end pulling on a string. And this machine lets them go in there and actually, I mean, granted, it's still labor intensive, but this machine actually pulls the wire through It's a lot smoother, it's a lot faster and more efficient for us. But there again, it's a replacement. South Truman, that's a tie line that would go in conjunction with the Truman Road project. We've also got a water line going in with that project, so we'll have a major electric circuit and a large water line going along with that Truman Road project. Old Wilderness Lighting is the project where we've been discussing the potential doing the sidewalks. That project also included lighting that street. So once we have some direction on what to do with the sidewalks, we'd still like to light that. We could do that with or without the sidewalks, and so we'll just sit tight on that for now until we have some direction on which way we're going to go on that project, and then we'll get that planned. Of course, I mentioned the IT switch replacement, the building repairs. I mentioned those items with the street, and those are just the electrics portion of those same projects. Brian, Chris, you guys want to add anything? Did I miss something? Any questions for me?
Is the South Truman Boulevard, that's an underground
Yes, sir.
circuit extension?
Yeah.
Mess up the view from my pool.
All right, I'll give Doug a little break here. Kind of go through the water system. The first two items, of course, are carryovers. The AMI metering is the water piece of that AMI project. Doug kind of went over that on the electric side. That's just due to timing and the amount of workload that we had this year. We just haven't quite been able to get on top of that one yet, so we are sliding that one till next year. And then, of course, the second one is in conjunction with the Truman Boulevard construction. That is the water line piece of that project and will be installed along with the road construction. North Main to CC Water Main. This is the North Water Main extension that we've identified in order to increase pressure and water quality for the northeast part of Nixa. Because of the extreme amount of growth that we've had over the past 10 years, we have been struggling with water pressure up in that area, and this water main will allow for that pressure to resolve itself. We also have a replacement truck. This is a service bed truck for the wastewater collection system. I'm sorry, this is I'm on the water side. Sorry, you'll see another one on the wastewater. We do have a service bed and truck replacement for the water department. The Walnut Creek Loop Line. This is, let's see, I'm trying to think. Yes, I'm sorry, yes. This is a replacement loop line. There was a loop line that was installed in conjunction with Walnut Creek subdivision that tied Pine Hill Place to Walnut Creek. However, that line was installed outside of an easement, and when a home was constructed last year, it was identified that the water line that was put in by the developer was put outside the easement. So we had to abandon that and allow that builder to move forward with his home construction. So this will rectify that situation and replace that water line that was improperly installed by the developer. Bulk fill water station. This is our second of 2 bulk fill water stations. This year we identified a CIP project and are currently under construction on a bulk fill station on the south side of town. Next year our hope is to construct a very similar facility on the north side of town so that customers will have the option of going to either the north side location or south side location to increase the convenience factor for them. The next 3 split items are a restroom expansion at the 1010 Public Works Water Quality Facility. This is in conjunction with the ADA transition plan to upgrade the restrooms, not only adding additional facilities for the increase in employees that we have at that facility, but also bringing that into compliance with the ADA requirements. Doug also spoke to the IT switch replacement and the need for that, along with the website and app that is spread throughout the areas. Any questions on the water CIPs?
Again, we've broken out utility billing into its own department, and it will be shared between water, wastewater, and electric. The handheld equipment project is pushed forward from this year. We probably won't be getting, we're like 4 to 6 months out on the equipment, so that will be handled in 2022. And then Ict Switches, that's a common theme apparently. So those are the two projects for utility billing.
All righty, on to the wastewater side. The first item you have is a carryover from this year. These are truck scales that would be used by the wastewater treatment plant to weigh the sludge trucks before they leave the plant so that we can identify how much waste has been land applied to area farms. This is part of a DNR requirement. We do not currently have any scales at the facilities. The truck drivers are leaving the wastewater treatment plant, traveling up to Triple P on Trackler Road to get their trucks weighed on their, and then from there have to go back and do the land applying. So to increase the efficiency of the operation, we are requesting monies to put truck scales in. This item is a carryover from this year. The monies that we identified for 2021 were not sufficient to cover the cost of the scales with the, and that was just due to material supply, increases in costs for the equipment. The next two you see, the service bed truck and the pickup replacement, those two vehicles have been ordered. However, they have not been delivered, and our fear is that they will not be delivered before the end of the calendar year due to the microchip shortage and everything. Those dealerships have indicated that there's a very slim chance they'll be delivered in '21, and they'll be well into the first or second quarter of next year. So we have identified those as rollover monies. Next, we have a manhole cutter. This is an attachment for a skid steer that will aid in the raising and lowering of manholes, specifically in areas that they are located in streets. In conjunction with our mill and overlay process, we frequently have to either raise manholes or lower manholes to account for the new grade that is going to occur as part of that overlay. This is a very labor-intensive process. This attachment to the skid steer is designed to go in, cut the asphalt around, and allow the operator to clean up the area around the manhole to raise or lower that manhole in advance of that street overlaying process. Next, we have a wheel loader, which is down at the wastewater treatment plant. This is a loader that is nearing its end of life for serviceability, and so this is a 2012, I believe, or a 2012 model that has numerous hours on it. It is used quite extensively down there for composting and other operations down at the plant and is in need of replacement. Filter upgrade, this is also a replacement feature for the wastewater treatment plant to increase the operations down there. Next, we have lift station pumps. What we are doing is trying to get ahead of any problems that we might have because of supply shortage issues and lead times on delivery. We've identified backups for our lift stations and identified pumps that could be replaced next year that are getting close to their service life requirement but have not failed yet. So this will allow us to replace those pumps with new pumps and then have an existing pump that we can have available in an emergency circumstance if there's a pump failure throughout town. So this replaces pumps that are nearing their end of life while also providing us some backup pumps that we'll have on the shelf. The oxidation ditch walkways. This is a safety concern that we have down at the treatment plant. Our oxidation ditches, our personnel are currently having to walk along a wall that does not have a safety rail in order to clean out those oxidation ditches whenever they get materials in them that are foreign and have to be removed. This is not an area we want an employee falling into an oxidation ditch, so we've identified this capital improvement project to create some safety rails to add that extra layer of safety for our employees. Let's see, we have, sorry, it's getting harder to read the longer I look at that screen. Southwest Regional, the Southwest Regional Lift Station. This is the Oakmont Heights Lift Station that we referenced in the ARP money. We've just identified as Southwest Regional instead of Oakmont Heights. Same project, though. 1010 restroom expansion. This is the split out with the wastewater collection side for the water for the ADA upgrades, along with the IT switch and the website app.
There's my money tree after all of the expenses. It's a sad day.
There's a little bit of green stuff left on the tree.
All right, so that was a lot of information, but if you want to go back and revisit anything particular that you made notes on or that you had questions about or that you want to talk about any further, this would be the time to ask.
So on that last stormwater one with the lift station that we were talking about using the ARP money for, or AAP money for, would that then move out of their budget into that other budget? I mean, because right now it looks like it's shown in the
Yes.
current budget items.
Yes.
Okay.
So it would be a transfer in revenue from ARPA.
Okay. Okay.
And then I just want to mention a couple things real quick. I know somebody mentioned you see a lot of IT switches. We're working on a program to eventually get all of those across the city. We met with Pitt, and there's several of those that we need to get done. We're just starting with some of the utilities, and you'll see a lot more of those in the next few years.
On those too.
So, but we did already get an answer for, Cindy already got an answer for us on the server, and they cannot be leased because they're specifically built to us. But we can ask about the IT
For
switches
which
next.
server? What's the server's purpose?
Yes.
Fancy computer talking.
I was told that they have to build it to our specs and our system requirements, unlike a standard computer. I think it's a storage. It hosts all our
Yeah, the
software and
servers- the
stuff,
servers
correct? The
Store
server.
all your software.
But we have
for that.
two,
Very
Yeah.
familiar with how this
there are
works.
two, we have
But-
two that are very old,
Yeah.
and they've not had maintenance, they said, for 7 years. And so we purchased one new one, which is coming, and it's gonna host, they're gonna be able to migrate part of that off. They'd like to have a second new server so that we can migrate some of our information back and forth and do some of the maintenance on those old ones. And it just expand our capacity that's kind of what I will think.
Yeah, and we'd be happy to
Let's
visit with
have
Pitt
a-
some more.
Let's have a
Yeah.
more detailed conversation with them.
Yep.
Maybe
Okay.
We can
this is
actually
the time
have
we
them.
migrate all of our servers to the cloud, and we don't own any servers
own a
anymore,
server, yeah.
which is
Right, we
a
talked
much
about
more
that.
long-term, cost-efficient way of doing
We
it.
did talk about that.
And then we don't have to worry about having extra backup
Yes.
servers because
Right.
they already have all the extra backups.
That's right.
Yeah.
And actually, we could probably get Pitt to come in and
They would
visit with
actually do,
council.
Yeah,
yeah,
when we have a
Jason
discussion.
could
A
come
little
in
more
and do it.
in-depth presentation on that.
Absolutely.
Sure. And the IT switches, they said that we needed all new IT switches throughout the city.
That's
Yeah.
understandable.
And
That's
that
definitely-
right now,
especially if
we
they're 7
needed to
years old.
start somewhere. And so Catherine needs 2 switches, water department needs, or the 1010 needs 1 switch, and utility billing needs 2. So they're about around 5,000 apiece, so $25,000.
Yeah.
But I knew General couldn't afford them this year.
Can you just
And
order
then-
one wish?
Also, I want to make one other mention real quick, because
Routers.com up on South
as you
Campbell.
saw, a lot of the CIP presentations were, or a lot of the CIPs were carried over to this year, because costs were just coming in so high this year. It was really unexpected, and I just thought it'd be a good opportunity to make sure that council had a clear picture of all the budget amendments that we've had to do this year because of those rising costs. I had Jennifer put those numbers together, and we've spent $516,970 or $770, I don't have my glasses back on, but it was $516,970 just in budget amendments this year. So obviously, we elected to push a lot of those CIPs to this year instead of coming back and doing any more budget amendments than we had to. So rising costs are
What was
quite
that
honestly
number again?
killing us. Do what?
What was that number again?
Making my glasses back on right here. $516,970.
When would you like Pitt to come in and do an in-depth? discussion on our IT needs.
You want them to do a presentation for everybody? You want just us to talk to them and see what they are saying? Yeah, why don't we just have a set a meeting?
Just set up a
That's a good
separate meeting?
Yeah, just, yeah,
Okay, perfect.
yeah.
Okay. All right, and as Jennifer said, we're open for discussion now. That's the staff's presentation. So for any area you'd like to go back and visit, now would be the time.
Chief Campbell, I'd like, for the next meeting, if you could bring back some idea on what it would cost for us to add 2 new officers.
We can do that. I believe that we have those figured at some point to some degree, and so it would just be a matter of looking at the numbers that were presented.
Okay, we'd just like to look at them, see if it's going to be a possibility somewhere expense-wise. Thank you.
That's about 0.5%, I think. Well, add 1%, to add 2. That's what I had estimated. Figure that out. Jennifer can get you an estimate right now, so she's working on that.
So I want to go back to the police officers, when we're talking about that. I would like to definitely see what that dollar for all officers would look like, and so we can bring that up to the next meeting. Unless we need to do something tonight about that, I don't know.
Yeah, we can actually get direction tonight if council's ready to do that. That would raise that percentage to 97.1, as I mentioned earlier. If that's a direction the council would like to go, we could follow that direction tonight and work it into the budget.
I will say it does go back to our original conversation when we discussed this, well, the last time we did a raise. We're continuing to train people for other departments. And it's costing more money than a dollar raise at this point.
Absolutely.
Granted, it still hurts the bottom line, but.
Yep.
I mean,
Absolutely. We're spending,
We're not a
and Chief
training
can
facility.
attest to that. We're spending a fortune on training and FTOs and just let alone the staffing that's not on the road while we're working through that. So, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think we have a pretty strong force right now, and if we can't really afford to add the additional 8 officers, we need to be able to afford to keep the current officers that we do have and not let them get recruited by somewhere else.
On the addition of the officers, are there any other expenses? Do we need to buy a new vehicle? Do we need to buy new equipment? You know, that's, as I was saying, if you can bring that back, just bring it back for the next discussion. I mean, I'm sure we can do the payroll right now, but the other parts of it may need to have a little more thought into.
Sure. We can bring that back. So is that, just for clarification, is the direction for us to move forward with $1 on the officers? Okay.
I think you can tell us what's the dollar amount? You said the percentage amount. What's the dollar amount?
For $1 an hour. Okay, hang on one second. She's working on the additional officers, and then we'll get you the dollar amount for the other.
I didn't ask her to calculate it that way.
$1 more and 2 additional officers is an additional $247,000. $247,418. And that puts the percentage at 98.37%. Now then, if you just take the 2 officers out.
So Chief, at the rate that we're at right now, how long will it take us to actually hire 2 more officers? Not counting, if we lose one and hire one, that doesn't, obviously.
Well, that's an interesting question that you asked, because a lot of things go into that. The cycle in which the Drury Police Academy, which is where we get most of our brand new recruits, where they are and when they'll graduate. And then additionally, if we're able to advertise a better starting rate of pay and some of these other benefits that we're talking about here tonight, there's a good chance we could potentially see some more interest from laterals. We're starting to see a little bit of interest from outside the area. So I really can't answer a question as to how long it's going to take. I can tell you that I have 2 openings right now, and we're in a background phase with some individuals, and we hope to have those filled within the next few weeks. And so we would, if given approval, January 1, we would be moving rapidly to fill those as quickly as we could.
So I think someone did ask earlier about, why don't we just spend 100% of the money? That's what Jennifer asked the first day that she came on after Donna left, was why don't we spend 100% of the money? So you can see from this very nice dashboard, which I very much enjoy, why we can do that. So we are receiving 40, I should have brought my glasses. I don't think I have to read anything this close. $44.5 million in revenue. You're spending $20 million on operations and $20 million on capital outlays. So that's why we save that money, so that we can spend $20 million improving this city, building new infrastructure, adding new programs, adding to our parks, adding to our police officers. And so, well, I like 96. 98 might be okay this year, and we'll see.
So the cost of just the dollar raise without the 2 extra is $113,841, $113,841. And that brings the percentage to 97.16.
And we'd have a little bit more for equipment or whatever else. I don't know how the car rotation currently works. You have to think about that. And those
Might
kind of
have some, additional for uniforms and things like that.
Mayor, Council, I want to use this as an opportunity to remind Council that we really need to look seriously at additional revenue sources as we move forward. As you can see in the budget, we are spending more than we're bringing in. By the time you look at capital and the expenses, and that's not healthy long-term. So we definitely have to look at, as we move forward, we really need to make some decisions, in my opinion, sooner than later on additional revenue sources. And I would be happy, if council would like to talk about some of those tonight, I'd be happy to do that, or if you'd want us to do that at a different time, we can do that as well. But I feel that there is somewhat of an urgency for us as you look at the budget. We just continue to go farther and farther down in our reserves. So.
Are we going to do that? Can we really do that until we have the review by Baker Tilly?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to have that conversation. So I've been doing some research, and been visiting, quite honestly, with the City Republic. They recently did a sales tax initiative, and spent quite a bit of time talking with David over there, their CA, and getting some insight on how that worked. And I will tell you that, there's been a lot of discussion with council about moving forward with maybe looking at doing a public safety tax. There are some, quite honestly, a public safety tax is going to take probably 2 years by the time we get it attached to legislation, and then get it back to the vote of the people. There's also some restrictions on what that can be utilized for, and there's a lot of debate on what that can and can't be used for. And quite honestly, I feel that the better direction for council would be to consider doing a general sales tax that would then be set out exactly how much of that we were going to spend on public safety. We could, as Republic did, they came out in an ordinance and said they were going to add 14 firemen, 12 officers. They were very clear and upfront with what they were going to do with that, but it was presented as a general sales tax. There was some earmarked for some of public safety. So I've been working on what that might look like, and I can tell you that we can wait for Baker Tilly because it is in the budget. We put, I think, 30,000, something like that in the budget. But I also, I'm very confident that we have a lot of, as I think you all are, we have a lot of support in our community for our public safety and our law enforcement. And if that's something that council, a direction we would like to go, we'd be happy to bring that back. And I think that, we could probably do that without going through Baker Tilly to tell us that would pass in our community. But if council would feel more comfortable with going with Baker Tilly and seeing how that comes back, we could definitely do that. That's just going to push that out a little farther. We won't be able to get them, under contract till after the first of the year, and then it takes them 3 or 4 months to get their stuff together. So, but again, I think that it would be a avenue that we could definitely take and take quite quickly if need be.
Would it be possible to combine a police and park tax together?
Well, again, it'd be a general sales tax, so there really wouldn't be, other than what we line out specifically in our ordinance that money will be spent on. And Nick can help. He's been looking at this for me a little bit too. Other than that, again, it'll help offset some of the costs that general fund is taking on with the parks and the police department. So again, it's a general sales tax, so it could be used for some of those things as well. But we would definitely want to be upfront with the public about here's the things that we're going to get with this money. And of course, we could look at, we're capped out at 2%, so we could go all the way up to 2%. So we could do anything from a 1 cent, 3/4 cent, ½ cent, whatever council's comfortable with. But again, this is something that we haven't done in a very long time. We've tried a couple parks taxes, but our sales tax has not increased since, I don't even remember when. It's a long time. And we still have one of the lowest sales tax in all of Southwest Missouri. And I think that we're starting to see, quite honestly, and staff has done a fantastic job over the years, being very frugal. And we're just getting to the point that we're growing so quickly that we've got to find some revenue source to keep up with that growth. It's just not sustainable. So, yeah, so we could definitely look at doing something with that if council would like to go that direction.
Is there enough time to prepare for that before an April election? Because
Well,
I think Drew has said in the past he wants a year.
Yeah, I know, but I think that, in talking, and Drew can by all means weigh in too, but I know with Baker Tilly, the way that they're set up is once they start, it's very quickly. They want to do their stuff, and then they want to get it on the ballot really quickly, which would not give us a year because they have to use their data when it's fresh. So although, yes, ideally, a year would be great. We could lay that groundwork and get that, get the message out of the need, but I think that we could push pretty hard and make sure that we're educating the public on where we're at currently financially and that need. So, but again, Drew is more than happy to weigh in on that. If he has a mic back there.
I think we need 2 weeks.
I'm standing over here by Doug. I think it depends a lot on what we're wanting to fund. So if it's a problem that the public is already aware of and agrees with, or something like we heard from our strategic planning process, right? People want parks, trails, they want, and we know that our community does support our police department. If it's those kinds of things, I would say you can do a shorter time scale. But if it's something where we have to, say, a stormwater thing or a street improvement, sometimes that's going to take longer to explain to the public why that problem is so big and why it's unaffordable by other means, and that why a tax issue is required to fund that kind of project. But I think that based on the input we heard from the strategic planning committee and the community that when we did ImagineNixa.com, sorry, I'm stumbling a lot. I would say things like supporting our police department, supporting parks and trails, things like that are definitely popular, and so it doesn't take as much time educating the public about the problems or the need. We can jump much more quickly into, hey, here's your opportunity to do something about it.
Can you give us some estimates too, as far as, what a ½ cent would generate, what a 3/4 cent would generate,
Sure.
what a one,
Like to tell you right off the bat, a 1 cent will double what we bring in.
Right.
But outside of that, we can definitely do some quick figuring. We can actually probably that for you pretty quick.
While they're looking that up,
5.7 for 1 cent.
I was looking up everyone around us. Highlandville is the only municipality with the same sales tax rate as us, which we are the lowest out of Republic, Ozark, Branson, Springfield, Branson, West Clever, Ash Grove, Willard, Ava, and even Sparta.
Even Sparta, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think, the way things have been going lately as far as social media and that type of marketing, which is obviously what we would do the majority of, it's almost 1 month out of anything outside of that, and people forget. If you told me something 3 months ago, I'm going to have to ask you again this week if I was going to have to go vote on it. I do think a tax like this, some sort of almost the same layout as the lead meeting, would be something huge and wouldn't be that difficult to have. And there's a lot of people apparently that would really support more stuff at the parks, and
But they want to magically happen.
Yeah.
but they won't pay for it.
So
The
just so
one-
we
the
understand
one
what
thing
you're
you
saying,
have
if
to
we
do,
do
though-
a specific, like, public safety, then that's gonna take a lot longer. If we can do a general one, we can earmark so much to the police department or public safety, so much for the parks. And let's say it's 1 cent, but really, out of that 1 cent, only half of it is needed for that, then we can use the other ½ cent for whatever else the city needs as well.
In the general fund.
In the general fund.
Yeah, not utilities, but in the general fund.
Right.
So you could actually help offset some of the cost from the police department, the
Yes.
parks, and general fund.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the one thing you have to make sure is that people understand there's a difference between the school tax and the city tax, because right now they think what they're paying to the city is what they're actually paying to the school. And
Right.
I try to make sure
we're-
every time I talk to somebody, I say, this is not the same thing.
And we're talking about sales tax,
Yes.
which is different than
Totally
property tax. So a 1 cent addition would double, so if we've budgeted $3.55 million, so it would be an additional 3.5 million if we did 1 cent.
If we did
1.5 would be an additional 1.7.
If we did
7.
1 cent, where would that take us as compared to everybody else, Jared? Since you looked up all those other ones. I mean, I don't think they'll go for a 1 cent, to be honest. Just from last experience, the last time we tried to pass a half-cent sales tax and then a third-cent sales tax.
Would you say the percentage would go to if you did 1 cent?
I'm sorry?
The percent, what will the percentage go to if you go 1 cent?
It would
Hard-
double. I
It
mean,
would
it would,
double.
because we have a 1 cent right now, so if you
Okay.
put an
So if you added,
additional one.
if you added 1.7 million in revenue, what would the percentage go down to?
Oh.
Sorry, words are hard.
I understand where you're,
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and then I didn't factor in.
Red
the
Bull's wearing off.
Use tax fee.
I do want to add, though, if we did go for the sales tax in April and it were to pass, we would not collect it until the third quarter.
Right.
So there is a delay for the reception of that.
But at least we would have it in the third quarter.
Hey, Jamie, do they, or Mr. Lyles, sorry, is Republic putting something on the ballot in November?
I
I've
don't know
popped
the
up,
an-
like a random website popped up, and it had
Not that I
copyright
know of, but I can
2021.
ask. Not that I don't
I
know.
because they just passed one in April, they passed the 1
So are
cent,
they at 8.36 or 9.1?
Thing to-
Anybody know?
9 point something.
9 point, okay. Then it's,
9 point something, yeah.
They have
So we're at
they have 3 stacked park taxes plus.
7.475.
that's why they have
public
surfing
safety.
at their park.
That's why they have surfing at their park.
Okay, so if we said 1 cent,
And
what's that new
$750,000
percentage
of
look
city
like?
entrance
What is
signs.
that number? Does it go to 7.85 or, I mean, it'd be 8.4, so it'd add 1% to it. So 1 cent is 1%. Is that what you were asking, Amy? Or Darlene? Yeah. So it would change it to 8.475 if we add 1
Which
cent.
would still be lower than Ozark, lower than Republic, lower
Yeah.
than,
That's what I wonder if we'd still be lower.
way lower than Springfield. way
Republic's
lower than
9.1.
Republic.
Although, and I do understand, we want to make sure that whatever we bring to the public, we can definitely explain to them what we're going to use that funds for, and also make sure that we're not over-asking, but at the same time, I want to make sure that, this is something we've not done in many, many years and may not look at doing again for many, many years. So we need to make sure that we're at least asking for enough to take care of our needs from here moving forward for some time.
And the other thing
So,
to consider is the Wayfair taxes would come into play in 2023. We will get an additional use tax because we have a use tax in place where Ozark doesn't have a use tax, but they have a higher sales tax.
Just like quickly calculating with no guarantees that it's completely accurate, that would make our percentage 81.66%.
Which we were a few years ago.
Yeah.
And that's with a half cent.
That's a half cent?
Half cent.
Oh, half cent, okay. Well, that'd be, yeah. I think half cent.
And
We
for
just need to
every
get-
sales tax that goes up, use tax would also go up
Right,
the same amount.
Yes.
That, I spitball the use tax
Yeah.
because there's another factor in there, but, yeah.
Just trying to get Cindy her penguins. We'll get there. Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Well, if we go the park direction too, just to be able to show them something that we're going to do if we were going that direction is something that we need to plan for. So if we were to ask for a park sales tax, April or PD, but I don't have anything to show them. So we would need to plan for what we want to build or what we want to do with those funds. Does that make sense?
Shade Mcauley Playground.
We can do that with what's in there.
Yeah,
In our CIPs now, just noting that.
And make it more disabled,
Go to
for
urban air
a
if you don't
disabled playground too.
Now, if council would like for us to bring something back as far as maybe a estimate of what our needs may be in the recent, in the near future and extended future, so we can maybe evaluate how much of a sales tax addition we should ask for. In other words, we'll take a look at the police department, the number of officers, and the cost of that, and vehicles and such, and bring something back to council if you'd like.
Could we also do like a stair step, kind of like maybe the first so many years it's a half a cent, and then after a certain amount of time it goes to a cent? Is that something that,
No, you can't
You can't do that.
legally do that. Yeah, you have to be all upfront.
okay.
It'd be a lot cooler if we could.
I'd like just to echo something that Matt said as far as showing the public what their money would go towards. So if we're wanting to do park stuff, say a police building expansion or a street project or something like that, having some visuals or some mock-ups of designs of what they're getting, showing the whole shopping list, and that will really help people buy in and see, oh, like, we're getting that, and we're gonna get that, and we're gonna get that. And it also helps us with showing that we ultimately, if approved, we would spend the money on those things, and then we can show that we spent the money where we said we would.
Yeah, don't we have?
So do you need an answer as to, do you want to move forward with that? Is that what you're waiting on?
Yeah, just looking for some direction from council on how you'd like for us to move forward, if at all.
I'd like to see what it looks like.
Yeah, go ahead and move forward. The same concern Matt has is that we don't have, or Drew have, we don't have any visuals for that. If we would have started, Matt would have completed his Parks Master Plan he was supposed to complete this year, then we would have had that done. Yeah, it's gonna be hard. I think it'd be hard to sell in April. I think it's just the timeline. Be very concerned about putting it at other timelines, because we've had very bad luck with that in the past. November.
November?
Yeah. Could be. Get a lot of voters then. Think about it, come back and tell us some more.
We'll bring you something.
Okay.
Okay, and then, sorry, we kind of got on a sidebar there, but it is related to the budget. But back to the budget. The current budget that's presented, is there anything else that council would like to go back and discuss or address?
We have to consider cutting Cindy's penguins, maybe. $100,000 seems a lot for Christmas lights when we can't afford new police officers. It seems like concerning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe, we got the tree, that's step one. And if maybe in our master plan, maybe we put the power to somewhere while we're building something else, and then we don't have to pay that amount of money for that.
We're postponing, not canceling.
Postponing, not canceling the penguins, but postponing,
Not
yes.
canceling Christmas.
That one jumped
Yes.
out at me as being,
It
as
seems,
being,
seems a little excessive when we're
Yeah.
saying yes.
Yep, the electric costs are pretty expensive right now. Materials are really high, and it just costs a lot to run that electric. Obviously, the big picture is future economic development to bring people into the community. It's going to be huge eventually, but yeah, absolutely. That's a big one. It's one me and Matt talked about quite a bit. We even talked about pushing that, but we wanted to present it to council and see, and get some thoughts from you guys. And then, would you like for us to push the entire 125, or push 100,000 of it as the electrical cost? 25 was for additional lights as we start to build that out. Or do
Can we
you wanna
use
push
the
all of
lights
it,
if we don't do the electrical?
We can. I mean, if you are familiar with the current figurines that we have, we're very, very old, very hard to maintain and keep up. They're probably 30-plus years old. Updating them and still being able to use the islands and things like that there around the community center, we can certainly still do that.
Okay.
It just may not be the walking, drive-through,
Yeah.
friendly type atmosphere.
I think we should at
that
least
we've
maintain
envisioned.
what we have, because people have come to expect that, and that would be really depressing if those things just continue to degrade and then they aren't usable.
They're they are
Well-
borderline not usable at this point. That's why we need to
Isn't our
upgrade
year?
if we're going
next
to go that route.
But not to do the whole
So
walking
How much
path.
was the
So,
Water
the-
Street
so the
building?
100,000 is the electrical part,
120?
but 25
Yeah.
would be the replacement part?
Yes, sir.
It'd
How
be
much did
adding-
we just
yeah, it'd
cut?
be
I'd rather have
purchasing
that
new-
building than
Yeah.
Christmas lights.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go there.
Have we considered opening that up to sponsorships?
Sorry.
That would be something that we want to do,
That's Cindy.
yes.
They're gonna buy the pink ones. No, that's part of a whole bigger.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we just have to have the electric in place before we can open it for the sponsorships, because we don't have the electric to run the lights from the
Okay.
sponsors, so, yeah.
Like I say, we can do into the islands, we have some electrical that way. It would not be a walkthrough friendly that we've discussed. So by adding figurines, it's definitely working towards that greater picture.
You
and
can
getting
add
us
that to your
direct- moving that
demonstration.
direction. Sorry, Cindy, I'm trying to save your penguins.
Aw, save the penguins.
Okay, so
Yes,
we'll
that sounds good.
cut the 100,000 for now, push it down the
Yeah.
road and do 25.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt, what do you think would be the most popular thing with the public that they would be willing to pay more tax for? Would it be like gymnasiums? Because I know that's a huge need, or,
We have really opened the gamut with that question. There's a lot of need. The gym, yes, is definitely very, very, very full.
Yeah.
This winter is going to be a bit of an issue. We're up to 7.5%, almost 8% in basketball registration. The gym time available after 5:30 is nearly non-existent Monday through Saturday. And so it's going to be very, very slim. Baseball field needs are still great with 800-plus kids playing in our baseball program per season. So that one's definitely there.
yeah.
And then, yeah, you can still get into the discussions of indoor aquatics, the development of the Oak property, trails connectivity, and passive park space.
But my feeling is that some of these, I mean, an indoor pool's a nice idea. OAF is all, we have OAF, but it's a little bit more into the future. But the things like the gymnasium need and the ball field need, that to me would speak to the people more right now, because it's more urgent. And it's like existing things that we have that are maxed out and that need to be increased. So, I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like if we are asking for, people to pay for public safety, of course, which everyone's probably gonna be really on board with, and then like gymnasium, ball fields and stuff, you'd think people would go for that because it's sorely needed.
They've got the greatest return on investment
Yeah.
for us at this point.
Matt, do any teams use the big ball field anymore particularly?
Yes, we use it 4 nights a week.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that. I was hoping maybe we could take the back
I'm
end of
sorry,
that, and make
that's
that some
game
small
nights, 4
fields.
nights a week.
The cost of that is fairly, we looked at that before, the cost of that's pretty excessive.
Oh.
To cut it up into 2 smaller fields was a lot of money too.
It is excessive that way.
And I'll remind council, if we move forward with this sales tax initiative, you also got to realize that we have everyday expenses that come along with those CIPs that we have to make sure that this can pay for. Additional personnel.
30,000 a month for an indoor pool,
Yep, so,
just for chemicals.
yeah,
Yeah.
so, yep, the money only goes so far.
Now, hey, Matt, have we talked to the Ministerial Alliance or anything like that, looking at opening up their facilities for basketball? I don't know if we could do
We have
partnerships
not
with them.
at this point. It has been several years. I know some of the few of the gyms that we did look at back then either had their own programs
Okay.
to some extent for their members and things like that, or were not open for rental.
Gotcha.
Now, that was several years ago.
A lot of them stopped renting when the pandemic hit.
Correct.
That was the hardest part for us, was finding
Yeah,
places to
Even
practice.
prior to that, we had a couple years there that the schools had their youth sports program, and we weren't able to use school facilities. We found one gym that would let us in, and that one won't let us back. Not anything that we did, they've just filled out their competitive rosters, and they are full. And so that is not something that we burnt that road or that bridge, but just something that they filled out as well. But again, we haven't visited with them in several years, so that wouldn't have to be something we'd revisit too.
I got some notes I need to look over.
They're thinking.
Okay, we'll give you a little bit of time.
Give them a second.
I got notes.
It's a lot of notes. So Also, while you're doing some thinking, want to revisit the ARPA money, so the ARPA funds. Are we comfortable with moving forward with what was presented tonight with those funds?
Yeah, with that, the clarification, so the Cherry Street was 600,000, not 620,000?
It's, Doug, it's yeah.
Okay.
Give or take a little.
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah, it's considerably more than 600,000. We do what we could with the 600, yeah.
Along with that, I know at one of our council meetings, we talked about doing some type of incentive for vaccinations or something like that we were looking at doing with that. Is that still something that's on the table, or is that something that we?
We've not looked for any further into that at this
Okay.
point.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That's 35 grand right there.
Who owns that? Is that the vinegar plant?
Vinegar plant.
Well, actually, yes.
Mr. Giddens would like you to look into seeing if we could come up with an agreement with the vinegar plant to use their scales, because that's right off your road anyway, then you don't have to go any farther, instead of building truck scales. They just put in a really nice set of scales.
Yeah, it's really nice. Wave my golf cart on it.
Who is that? I'm sorry.
Vinegar
Vinegar.
plant,
The vinegar plant, yeah.
some really nice scales.
I didn't hear, sorry.
Did we already start the design thing on North Street?
Yep. And Jennifer was just mentioning that the feedback that we get from council tonight, she'll make all those changes, and then we'll bring it back at the next council meeting for.
So the
for-
ARPA, you got the changes ARPA with the changes that we had suggested.
As my understanding, you want to use the entire revenue loss figure, and then the difference take away from the wastewater lift station.
Correct.
And supplement with wastewater money.
Correct.
Okay. And then, what I will send you will be the full budget document where you can see all the detail. I just didn't want to overwhelm you tonight, so I'll send that out for you to look at, and we'll come back and talk about it at the next council meeting.
Anything else from this side? Mr. Giddens is still thinking. Anything else?
No,
from the?
sorry.
Anything else from this side?
That's right. So,
All right.
right now, just because we talked about $1 raise, but we also, someone mentioned 2 officers' positions, and we never really went anywhere with that. So do we want to bring that back or not?
Let's confirm the amounts and bring it back. Yeah.
Okay.
So we were talking about too, if we're pulling that $100,000 off the Christmas lights.
Not the same
But it's
money.
not
Not the same money?
Not the same money, but yeah.
Understandable.
No.
Well,
One's ongoing operational money and one is one-time capital expense money. But
It'd be nice if we could
But
find
yes.
money for an additional full-time parks employee as well.
yep, that would definitely push us probably in the 99s.
yeah, I don't think
We can bring the numbers back.
And I have a plan I'm gonna talk to Matt after this. I kinda have a plan that I discussed with Jimmy a while back that can possibly help out the parks and take some stuff off of him and some of his people. And it will cost us $0. So,
zero's good.
yeah.
Anything else? Anything else from staff?
I just want to give staff another opportunity. Is there anything else that we've missed or would you like to discuss? I do have one more thing. I looked at Chief and it reminded me. And
It's like,
That's gonna
stop,
be that's gonna be
Stop
interesting.
it.
I don't want anything else.
I know. There has been some discussion about radios, and I mentioned to Chief that I'd bring that up tonight. You know, we've talked many times about the radio system across the county needs to be replaced or updated, whatever. So I did meet with presiding commissioner today and Steve, the C8 Ozark, and we had a discussion about that. The presiding commissioner is looking into a few more things. He's going to get back with me, but if we do move down that road, we're going to have to probably come up with about $600,000. So we need to keep that in mind, that as we are looking at this budget on where that might come from, if we end up doing that. Now, there is recent direction from the state that Arpa funds, they believe that the state believes Arpa funds are eligible to spend on motion wind radios. Now, the U.S. Treasury has not said that at this point, but, so it's still a little bit of, you know, we're still waiting for some direction from U.S. Treasury, but I do feel a little more comfortable with the fact that the state is coming out and saying that they believe the ARPA funds can be used for motion wind, but that's going to be about $600,000, so we're going to have to keep that. We don't know where that's going yet, quite honestly. That's a project that the entire county really needs to buy off on to be able to make that change. So we have started those meetings and those discussions, but I don't know if Chief or anybody or Tennis would like to comment any more on that.
No, you covered it very well.
Okay, sorry, now, anything else from staff or council?
I had one more thing. When we talked about the personnel, one of the things that didn't come up that I wanted to mention to you, we've also put in an intern for electric and an intern for water. And that would be just a part-time, 336 hours for each of those. And there again, it's more for that, trying to get somebody to come along that might become a future employee or, you know, keep that pool open. So we do have one each in electric and water included in this year's budget.
Maybe not. Maybe we do, maybe we don't.
Jennifer's looking at me going, we do? So we'll double check that.
I'll check
Yes,
that
it was
out.
on my
Okay,
notes.
we'll check that out, thank you.
But it will be in there.
Surprises, surprises.
That's right.
That's
That's
how
why
we
it's
like
a
to roll,
working
right?
session, right? This is a working budget, but, yeah, we'll make sure we get that in there, because it's in my notes.
All right, nothing else. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So made.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.